All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is Jehad Abusalim. I am the Education and Policy Associate with the American Friends Service Committee in Chicago. I'm from Gaza, and my family lives in Gaza. And talking to you today from the United States. And we will have a great conversation with friends, people who we love and care about, who I will introduce shortly. We're all aware of what's happening right now in the Gaza Strip, and we are really honored to welcome Professor Refaat Alareer, who's a professor of English literature at the Islamic University in Gaza. He also is the person who taught me how to speak English. So I'm very thankful to welcome my teacher, someone who inspired me and who taught me and who has been someone who really influenced my life in many great ways. I would also like to welcome my dear friend Asmaa AbuMezied, who's a feminist activist and an expert on issues related to agriculture, who also lives in the Gaza Strip. We are really honored to welcome you both, and I know because your time is limited, you're speaking to us from literally under attack. Gaza is being bombed right now. And for some reason, you are unable to see me, but our colleagues who are running the Facebook Live are working on fixing this issue. I will turn my camera on and off. It's as if we need more technical glitches. It's as if there aren't enough glitches with the world we live in. Okay, now that it's fixed and you can see my face, hello again. And this is Jehad, and I'm speaking to Professor Refaat Alareer from Gaza and to our dear friend Asmaa AbuMezied. Let's start with, our conversation today will be divided into three parts. We will hear from Asmaa and Refaat about their life before the attack began. We will hear from them about what's happening right now. And we will also hear their call for you to take action. I will start with Asmaa. Asmaa, I would like today to celebrate your life as a Palestinian woman who lives in Gaza, who I have known for almost 10 years. We used to share an office. We used to share a floor at one of those buildings, probably that are about to be targeted and flattened. Asmaa, tell us about your life. What do you do? Who is Asmaa? And tell us about your life so that we celebrate this life as we talk right now.
Thank you, Jehad, for hosting me, and I'm really glad to be here with you and Professor Refaat. I think I consider myself a gardener before anything, because in the past 2 years I embarked into caring for a little garden under a mulberry tree. And that was my sanctuary. Whenever I feel suffocated from Gaza, and I feel like I want to travel, but I can't travel. So that little garden, I try to have the heaven that I wanted to see. So before all of this happened, I was worrying too much about my apple tree that had some diseases. I was worried about my pear tree and how I'm gonna fix the underwatering of it. And I was planning how I'm gonna do my agriculture calendar to care for the trees that I have. I had plans and asking so many agronomists and looking at the palm trees, and I was researching about our relationship with the trees. So that was one thing that I was trying to do, and I was also thinking about when I will take time off from my work and just go by the sea, have a sage cup of tea early in the morning, and just listen to the waves. I work in the field of economic development in Gaza with agriculture, with amazing young women and young people in the Gaza Strip, working in so many fields, from research and development in agriculture to like very, very pioneer ideas. And that was something that gives me hope every day. So that was the pre-aggression time for me.
Thank you so much, Asmaa, for sharing. This is such beautiful imagery. I can imagine. I follow you on Instagram. I see the beautiful photos from the area in the Gaza Strip where you live, and every time I see a photo of the palm trees and the olive trees and the citrus trees, I yearn and I long, and I can even recognize the scent of those photos. Refaat, you're a father, you're a teacher, you're an educator. You are obsessed with Shakespeare, and you have been posting before the attack started. Sometimes you post about grades, and sometimes I see you like managing a bunch of Facebook pages where you talk to your students. But those are glimpses from your life. We would like to hear more. What is Refaat's life like?
Thank you, Asma, for this beautiful introduction. I am a storyteller first and foremost. So even in my teaching, I tend to be a storyteller because this is how I was brought up by my mother, and this is what I learned as a Palestinian from my grandparents and from my parents, how to always tell and retell a story and to listen to people tell the stories and encourage them to write them. I teach English literature. I teach poetry and Shakespeare. My PhD is actually in English poetry. And I am obsessed with Shakespeare. I have taught Shakespeare for over 10 years. I've studied Shakespeare I'm not a specialist, but I love this guy in so many ways, and my students would always be. But that's when we started the online sessions this year, because of the coronavirus, I gave this introduction, like 1 hour of why Shakespeare, and I was like, exaggerating too much. And then one girl was like, but isn't that too much? I paused a little bit and then said, okay, let's go back to talk about the greatest man ever that ever wrote poetry. And then one of the other students memed this, how I could be, I hope I give my students the chance to speak, the room to speak as much as possible. But I am known to be a Shakespeare fanatic. I don't leave, like, if, what's the statement? If you don't know geometry, don't come here. If you don't like Shakespeare, don't come to my office. But I like to make it a little bit of a funny thing. So finally, recently, I have been also trying to work more on translation and translating Palestinian literature, Palestinian poetry. I translated a couple of Tamim Barghouti's poems myself. And I worked with an amazing team on a project to translate التغريبة الفلسطينية into English. But sadly, that project stopped a little bit because, it's something that needs fund. You can't make 20 people translate for weeks without paying them. So this is important to me. And I'm always on Twitter. This is also part of my, probably you wanted me to say something about my kids. I'm married. I have 6 kids. One of them is Shaima in high school. She's preparing herself for the most important year of school, Tawjihi in Gaza, final school, so she can join college, but it's been very tough. And I have Amal, the youngest, 6 years ago, who almost celebrated her birthday 3 or 5. We lost count of the days ago. Well, there's a lot of bickering here. There's a lot of, brother, sister, brother, fighting, and try to be, as cool as possible because of the situation.
And just right before the call, Refaat was describing how he is a big fan of the Chicago-style pizza.
I am, yeah.
Yes. So, and one of our colleagues said, let's suspend the Chicago pizza versus New York pizza dispute, just to to honor Refaat's love for the Chicago style pizza, and hopefully after this this criminal attack is over, we hopefully we will be able to invite you here and share a couple slices of pizza with you all, whether from Chicago or New York, or but we'll make sure it's in the Midwest, inshallah. Let's talk about what's happening. A lot of people, my family, my friends on the ground, we've been hearing reports on social media that say that this attack has been way worse than the 2014 attack. And the 2014 attack lasted for 51 days and led to the murder of more than 2,000 Palestinians, the majority of whom were children. In what ways this attack, this aggression is different? And if you can describe a little bit what it's like to personally experience this current moment, and of course, if you'd like to reflect on the short-term and long-term impact of this massive bombardment campaign, this massive and brutal and cruel bombardment campaign of Gaza. Asmaa, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Jehad. So, to be honest, the current aggression came at a time where we were already fighting for the global pandemic, and like we are already not knowing whether we should go to work or not, like how are we gonna support the people we work with, and as someone like who got COVID and two of my family members got COVID, we were really struggling even with the post-COVID symptoms, and like my sister and I were running from one doctor to another doctor to just see if we are okay, if the pain we feel in our hearts is something that is permanent or not. And I think we were discussing with Dr. Refaat, like, the health system and the health sector, and he will talk more about it. But from my experience, whenever I was running for doctors, I always was thinking of how privileged I am, because when I was going for tests, Jehad, the cost of doing a certain test is like over like $50 to $70. And for me, as someone who works, has the money to afford that kind of cost, and making sure that myself is healthy or getting the proper medication. And I really want to, like, one situation that made me pause was for a very sick lady who came to do a test, and she asked the secretary how much it will cost, and the secretary told her it's $15. Her companion looked at her and he's like, we can't pay for it. So the lady was hardly moving. She had to go back without even doing the test. And I was sitting there and I was thinking how cruel the situation is. So to have that and then come for the current aggression is something that is beyond measures. Like, the fear that we are experiencing is multiplied. It's not as if this aggression comes as the first one, so therefore, like, the shock and the trauma is just resurfacing. Actually, this comes after we are already trying to heal or convince ourselves that we are healing from this intergenerational trauma. So the moment we thought that we are a little bit fine, this aggression came, and it came so brutal. Whenever, like, 2014, 2012, and even 2008 and 2009, we had like this concept that, like, they are not going to target residential building. They are not going to target, like, mosques. They are not going to target schools, even though it happened. But usually it happens at the later stage of an aggression. But to see that coming, the destruction of the infrastructure is reflecting only a strategy that is not only trying to kill us and massacre us, but actually to kill any future generation. And I'll just give an example of the economic cost of what's going on. During this 8 days jihad, more than 15 factories, big factories, has been destroyed. And the majority of these factories are located in what is called the industrial zone, which is supposedly to be, risk-free. It's supposedly to be protected, and it has the infrastructure that these factories can function in. Already, these factories are at a huge disadvantage from 2014. So imagine a factory that is employing 50 people completely being destroyed or partially being destroyed in a place where we have half of the population is unemployed. And I think of my brother who is already unemployed, who has been looking for a job for like the past 10 years, and then embarking with me on like gardening, doing some lettuce here and doing some wheat, and that's not a solution. So what I'm seeing, Jehad, is that I really see that it's the infrastructure targeting. It has cost us so far more than $22 million, according to the Ministry of Economy. When you look at the infrastructure related to the energy sector, which is vital not only for the factories to work, but also for hospitals, for like households, the destruction reached more than 18 millions. When you think about all the local production that we have been fighting for years and years to establish and to have local products that we are very proud of, that we try to export to other places. This year, it was the first time we are exporting olive oil. Can you imagine that? Gaza has been very famous of its olive oil, of its wheat, throughout the century. And for the first time, after so much restriction, we are exporting these things. And then suddenly, all of this disappeared. And to rebuild that, to go through the industry of rebuilding and the cost is something I don't think we have the capacity to do after so much of a draining of our capacities and energies. I'm not trying to paint a very pessimistic view, but that's the realities on the ground.
Thank you for describing what's happening, and you still haven't described what it's like for you personally to hear the sounds of explosions, to experience the moment when the night falls. I've been talking to my sister, and she told me, I wish the earth could stop rotating, because I hate the nighttime. I don't imagine myself liking the nighttime ever again. And it's because during the nighttime, it's when most of the shelling happens. For you as a woman, as a Palestinian woman who lives in Gaza, with sisters, with a mom, with aunts, what it's like for women to experience this moment?
So for me, Jehad, I have been trying to vent all my anger and frustration and fear on Facebook. And I think all my friends now is either fed up of how much I write. I was telling a friend of mine, I enter to write a small post, I end up writing a chapter. And that's because there are so much emotions that we are struggling with. But two main emotions that I have been feeling over the past 8 days. The first one is that I reached to a conclusion where, to be honest, death is a relief. If I'm gonna live and continue to go through aggression after an aggression, I really I welcome death. You die and that's it. You don't have to worry about your beloved ones. You don't have to worry about how you are going to secure their future. You don't have to worry if you got a disability, how you are going to function within a really crippled sector. You don't have to worry about all the dreams that you were aspiring to do, yet it is taken away from you. And that's by, death is very merciful. And then the other conflicting feeling that I have is a huge feeling of guilt. my feeling of guilt is I live in the middle area, and Zawaida is considered a little bit calmer than like the northern area. And I kept thinking when I was hearing the sounds of like artillery shelling, how like there is privilege even in death, a privilege in the location where you are at. That even though anyone is subjected to be killed by an Israeli missile, at least I have a roof on the top of my head, and I feel guilty because I'm not part of what they are experiencing. And I look at that, and I look at how Israel is trying to manufacture and increase our economic inequality, Jihad. If you look at all the people who are currently in shelters, who are displaced, are the people who are located in the northern of Gaza, who are already marginalized from so many destructions over the past years. And they are the ones who are at the front line. So to look at that and then like see how Israel continuously targeting them, continuously exasperating their vulnerability, is something that really fills me with guilt. So I end up staying all night. I didn't want to sleep because by sleeping, I'm failing them. I'm not acknowledging their suffering. I'm not hearing their names. I'm not knowing their families. I'm not knowing what they are experiencing. So I try not to sleep. So yeah, sorry.
And it's important to say to those who are listening to us right now, stand up and defend those lives. Those lives are precious, are valuable, and they deserve every bit and every minute and every second and every hour of your time and of your work. Refaat, what it's like, I hate to ask this question. You've written about this in your New York Times piece. I still don't have kids, although I'm babysitting my nephews for the past 2 months. Probably you've seen posts, stories of them on Instagram, and I try to imagine, when kids are teething and cranky, and when they're angry children, or when they're trying to. How do you do it? What it's like to be a father in a situation like this?
Okay, I have to be honest here because you've said too much about me. I think my wife does most of this. Thankfully, she's an amazing wife. She's the rock of the whole family. She's always supported me when I was away doing my PhD and everything, and mainly with the kids. But again, there is this saying about having kids. Somebody says, before I had kids, I had 4 theories how to bring my kids up. And now I have 4 kids, but I have no theories at all. It's very unpredictable. And this is a man, I think, could be an American or English. He's talking about the perfect, normal society with all the white privilege they have. Imagine this in Palestine. Imagine this under Israeli brutal occupation. Imagine this under Israeli bombardment, non-stop bombardment in Gaza. And usually it's the tiny little things that drive you crazy. Asmaa beautifully put it. Somebody said that, and I mentioned this in passing in my New York Times article. Death, life is the worst case scenario here. For many people, there is a lot of despair. For parents, there is a lot of responsibility. You don't want to die, of course. You want to live to take care of the kids, to see them through the difficulties, to see them through more Israeli aggressions to come in the future, certainly to come in the future, and to answer their questions, to try to like the simple things. But again, even here, as I am privileged, like Asmaa said, we are privileged because we haven't died, because our homes have not been destroyed, and we feel the guilt because nobody in Gaza hasn't been touched personally. My family in Shujaiya had to evacuate, and I had like 5 days ago, and I insist that we lost count of days, so I could be saying 5 days ago and could be 7 or 6. my family had to evacuate in 2014. Israel bombed our home of 7 flats. My brother, who stayed behind to look after the home, Hamada, was killed, Allah yarhamu. And I wrote about him in the Electronic Intifada. And it's been tough. We haven't mourned him. We haven't finished building our home, honestly. And what happened is that my father stayed behind. You know how parents and fathers, particularly here in Gaza, like thinking that they could stop the Israeli missiles, you know, like Batman or Superman or Captain America. And he stayed behind, and he insisted that he's not going to leave. And my mom and my other, siblings had to evacuate. And then hell broke loose, especially in Shijaiya. The night the Israeli army fed false information, used international media and journalists as human shields when Israel gave them false information about land invasion, in order to massacre Hamas members. And when this failed, they hit over 500 times in Shijaiya at least. They destroyed the infrastructure, the roads, the electricity lines, the water, the sewage, everything, all the facilities, the internet, even the cemetery. My uncle was killed by Israeli police brutality in the 70s. He was killed under interrogation like black people are being killed in America. And the cemetery where he's buried was bombed again. And one of my relatives was like, Ammi On was killed twice by Israel. And the thing is that we lost contact with my father, and it's 2014 all over again. You don't know where the bombing is, you don't know what's happening, and you can't have an answer, and you have to live through this. You're just going through this. But again, and I'm saying, and I'm insisting on this, that I am privileged. I'm privileged, and we feel this in not that we want to die. It's that Israel has made death a reality, an everyday reality. And imagine having to go through this with the kids around you. And 2 days ago, when we ran out of kitchen stuff and cooking issue like vegetables, I took my elder son Omar, and we ventured out looking for a street vendor to buy some fruit and vegetables. And I said, Omar, do you want to walk together or further away from each other? You know the idea. So either we go together or one of us goes. And he said, what difference does it make? And a 16-year-old, and he knows that when Israeli bombs fall, they fall and they kill. The radius is huge. They kill people around, a huge area. And finally, being an educator and an English instructor here in translation and creative writing, I teach around 1,000 Palestinians from Gaza every year, and this is a privilege. I hope I can touch these people's lives and improve them in ways that improve their lives, and etc. One of my, every time there are people, there are reports about houses or homes being bombed by Israel while people slept, people killed. I have to check, because I need to look for family members or relatives, and I also need to look for students or their families. And I posted this on the Facebook group for my Shakespeare course. I said, please don't think about studying about the course. Don't worry, don't do anything. And then one of the students said, I lost everything. We lost our home, my relatives, and the box. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. We'll do the impossible to get out of this and to be. And I want to talk about Zainab Al-Kholaq, who lost 17 members of her family. I taught her 2 courses, an amazing, brilliant student, very active, very, very, very smart, very intelligent, full of life, promising, a good writer, a good translator. And in 2 months, she finishes her English degree. She is now in critical condition. And I was told that she doesn't know she lost 17 family members. 6 of them are here. I think 2 sisters, I think 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and her mom. So this is what it is to be in Gaza, or to be privileged in Gaza, where death is not the worst case scenario.
There are no words, and I say that as someone who who is from there. But let's end with a note where we, despite everything, we have a movement here in the United States, a movement that has been growing, a movement for Palestinian rights and freedom, a movement that has been impressing us with many achievements that signal a major shift in how the Palestine question is talked about and is approached in a place like the US. What do you say? And if you don't mind, Refaat, let's begin with you, and then we will conclude with Asmaa. What do you say to our audience in this moment in which we witness this massive uprising all over Palestine and an emphasis on ending the Nakba as a key root of all the violence and all the oppression that has been unfolding for 72 years?
The solidarity movement is growing increasingly, and this is wonderful. As Palestinians, we insist on building on the struggles of our brothers and sisters who suffer from racism and discrimination. Black Lives Matter, the native peoples around the world and other minorities. We share their pain, and we participate, we support their struggle, and they do support our struggle. So we need, we reach out to everybody. Get out to the streets, mobilize. Of course, take coronavirus precautions into consideration, because we want you to be okay. And talk to people about Palestine. Send them to social media rather than mainstream media. Let them talk about to young Palestinians, especially from Gaza, Sheikh Jarrah, and other areas brutalized by Israel. Boycott Israeli products and services. Call for BDS, boycotting and divestment and sanctions against Israel. And then this has to materialize into the political arena by pressuring politicians. We are not going to vote to you if you do this. Palestine has to be part of the struggle. It doesn't have to be all the struggles are together. But you can't be a feminist and a Zionist. You can't call for rights of minorities, and then when it comes to Palestine, mom is the word. There is a lot of change. We've seen what happened in the Congress, from the Black Caucus, especially from people of color, and this is amazing. We need more. We don't need just to condition the aid to Israel. We need to end it, because Israel uses it to kill Palestinians.
Thank you, Refaat. Asmaa, a general strike is taking place in all of historic Palestine today. Can you talk a little bit about the strike? What this moment means to you as a Palestinian in Gaza, to see all Palestinians joining together in this unified uprising against the Nakba and its continuation? And of course, we honor the general strike and all those who are standing up today against injustice and oppression in Palestine and outside Palestine. And Asmaa, we would like to conclude with you with the same question that I asked Refaat. What is your message to our movement here and to people who are listening right now?
As a gardener, Jehad, I'll go back to my garden a little bit, and I'll just give an example of a baladi rose, warjuri, Jehad. I have planted this rose for 2 years, and and it already had a flower on it, but then it didn't have produced or bloomed any flowers for the past 2 years, and I have been caring for it, giving it water, and this spring it still didn't give me any roses, and I reached to the point where I really give up, and I wanted to replace it with another rose. And then only 2 days ago I wanted to check on my plants, and it bloomed. I took a picture of the flower. I wish I can share it with you all. It was a beautiful, a very beautiful purple rose. And when I looked at it, I thought that only when I reached the point where I lost hope, it bloomed. And I see this is how the general strike is giving us. It's giving us the hope that we as Palestinians have almost lost. To be honest, I reached the point where I lost hope in humanity. And then like the movement of solidarity, the Palestinian rising everywhere, speaking very loudly about their rights and their freedoms, and their fighting with their breath and lives on stake to just say that we want to live, but we want to live with dignity, and we want to live free, is something is very powerful for me. But what I also notice is that this uprising, this movement, it's the adhan in the background, and I just want to honor it. So I'll have to be silent for a bit, if it's okay with everyone. So I just want to say that it was not only the Palestinian uprising, but what I saw people hitting the streets in Sudan. I saw people hitting the streets and messages of solidarity from my friends in Colombia, from my friends in so many places that I've never thought I will receive messages of solidarity at the time that they were also struggling for their fight of justice and freedom. And at that point, I do remember, Jehad, and I apologize, I'm taking more of your time. I remember I was once...
As much time as you want.
Thank you, Jehad. I remember I was once talking to a European, and I was telling him like how important it is to build solidarities among the people who were oppressed. To be honest, he laughed at me, and he said like, what's the point? A weak nation cannot support another weak nation. If you want to have a change in Palestine, go to the policymakers in Europe. And I'm glad to see the moment that it proves him wrong, because what I'm seeing is that people are supporting people. Oppressed people are also standing in solidarity with oppressed people, and they are taking actions. And we are witnessing, as you mentioned, like so much shift within the US that we have never mentioned before. So my call of action, Jehad, is twofold. One is that your voice matters. Like never underestimate how powerful your voices collectively can have. Whenever you can pressure your representative and policymakers, that's something you can do, and that's something we ask you to do. And we ask you to do because we share the same struggle. Our collapsing health system, you are also suffering from that. So we understand how it's difficult to function within this systems that really benefit from our struggles and suffering. My other call to action, which is related to where I work, is that the importance of supporting Palestinian product. You cannot imagine, Jehad, how many years it takes to just build a trust in a Palestinian product, to tell the people that a Palestinian product, despite all of what's going on, it is a quality product, it is done with so much consideration, and it's something that is made with love. So to support Palestinian product and to be conscious when you are buying products and see what are the atrocity that is committed with the product that you are buying is something that is very, very powerful. And I'm also saying that because I'm biased. I have been working with Palestinian startups in Gaza, and I know a lot of like my friends who are starting a slow fashion brands or fashion brands that really try to keep the memory of Palestinian embroidery alive, yet with a style and fashion. And I know that they are making a difference, not only from a Palestinian lens, but also from a conscious consumer lens. So there is power with us. And I think, and I urge everyone to use that power.
Thank you so much, Asmaa. I really appreciate your words. I really appreciate you, Refaat. The eloquence and the beauty of your words, the inspiration that you give after we lost track of time, after after you have been through the long days and nights of bombardment. I'm very, very thankful, and I'm very honored to be speaking to you today. Is there anything else you would like to say before we end this call?
Can I say again, I have to mention this, the health sector in Gaza is being devastated. Sorry, this comes at the very end, but it has to be said. Israel is targeting doctors deliberately, and Israel is targeting clinics. And in particular, Israel is targeting clinics that provide COVID-19 services at a time when Palestinians in Gaza are plagued by coronavirus. The number of cases was skyrocketing a moment before the war, and now we don't have even testing. The only lab testing center clinic in the Gaza Strip was damaged the other day. I want to mention two important names here. Gaza's top neurologist, Dr. Mu'in Al-Alul, who was killed with his family members 5 days ago, and head of the COVID-19 response team at Gaza's biggest hospital, Al-Shifa Hospital, Dr. Asmaa AbuMezied was also killed, and one of Gaza's most important social psychologists and social worker, Raja AbuMezied, was also killed. They were killed with many family members. This is what Israel is doing to us.
And we take it upon ourselves to put an end for this and to make it the last time Israel does something like that. And this is a personal and a movement commitment here in the US. I will take it upon myself because before anything else, it's for me also, it's a matter of life and death of my own family and of you guys. And we love you and we appreciate you and we care about you. And your lives are worth everything. And you are people who have inspired us, and you will continue to inspire us. And speaking of the health situation, I would like to encourage those who are listening to go to afsc.org/give to Gaza, give number 2 Gaza, and donate. Our team on the ground is working under the bombing, under the bombardment, away from their families, to provide hygiene products and to provide COVID-19 related supplies for elderly people and people with special needs who are now living in shelters, who are cramped into shelters and who are unable to have access to these supplies to preserve their dignity under those circumstances. Please go to afsc.org/give to Gaza. My colleagues will provide the link in the chat. I'm sure there are many resources that you can find. Also, AFSC will provide many resources for advocacy, many resources for reaching out to your elected representatives. We have an action going on. Please check that out. You will find the link in the chat. Again, thank you, Refaat. Thank you, Asmaa. We will be in touch with you. We will hear from you, and we will amplify your messages, and we will make it heard everywhere by everyone, inshallah. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks.
Take care, Asmaa. Jehad.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
You too.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Assalamu alaikum.